All right, we're ending on YouTube. Get your butts over to Rumble if you're watching this tomorrow. I'll put up the entire stream, vivabarneslaw.locals.com, Viva Fry on Rumble. Ending on YouTube. Now we're on the free speech platform. Robert, speaking of gag orders and the crap coming out of New York. All right, so, I mean, where do we start? Let's start with the gag order. That is in the Judge Juan Marchant, Alvin Bragg persecution of the Stormy Daniels hush money bullshit. It's bull crap.
I mean, the natural transition there was from one extortion to the victim of extortion, who's now being prosecuted for being the victim of extortion in the case of President Trump.
That was I had another one about gagging, but I won't do that one. Robert, so the judge issued something of a limited gag order. When I'm reading it, any gag order that goes beyond standard criminality already, like extortion, interference with witnesses, intimidation, are already crimes. Any gag order that goes above and beyond that, has to need some justification. In this case, Marchant, who didn't like the Truth Social post where Trump, is it rightly points out that Marchant's kid works for some political think tank? Is that a known fact?
Yeah, well, yeah. It's been published by the New York Post, another publication, that she's deeply embedded within the Democratic Party apparatus.
Okay.
Now, to be honest, probably almost every judge in New York is. I've represented many people in New York in various kinds of cases over the years. Wesley Snipes against a very abusive New York proceeding, totally separate from the Florida criminal case, and represented Amy Cooper in New York and got full dismissal with prejudice of all the charges. But one reason to do that, as I told people afterwards, if you're in New York, nobody in their right mind wants to go in front of those New York judges. I've often said, if it wasn't for the District of Corruption, the D.C. courts, the Southern District of New York is the most corrupt legal system in America, and the state system is actually worse. Popularly portrayed in Law and Order as this wonderful bastion of integrity and impartiality. It hasn't been ever since that famous prosecutor, Robert Morgenthau, stepped down. It always had problems, but it's been atrocious since he left. I mean, Amy Cooper never should have been prosecuted. That was that was basically a selective social media PR political case. Mm-hmm. But they put their best prosecutor, the Harvey Weinstein prosecutor, on Amy Cooper's case. And then they brought in the cops that usually work the cold cases. So they literally brought in their three best detectives in the entire New York Police Department, which is really one of the best police departments in the world, with one of their best prosecutors for Amy Cooper because she didn't like somebody trying to take her dog away from her and making threatening statements towards her.
Who was it? Nuts. Who was the DA or the DA or the who was the DA or the
on the Amy Cooper case was the lead prosecutor against Harvey Weinstein. You're talking about one of the top prosecutors in America. That's what we were up against. That's why other people were like, "You're screwed, Barnes." Well, we got dismissal with prejudice, baby, so that worked out. But it was because no way we were marching forward in front of those New York courts, and that the insanity of those New York courts is just astounding. Anybody who goes through it is often shocked, right? They think of judges. This is New York, right? The beacon of America. The sophisticated cultural capital of America, the economic capital of America. Surely its courts are that way. No, they're like Judge Old Man Perv. In like this fraud of a judge. I mean, and as a bunch of people have been pointing out, anybody that's honest about the law would say this judge should recuse himself, just like Fannie Willis should have been disqualified. This judge is politically prejudiced. He's openly partisan. He's rushing and pushing a completely bogus case that could be completely dismissed and made moot by the Supreme Court by June by applying presidential immunity in a broad way like it constitutionally should be and needs to be at the moment to preserve the integrity of the judiciary. And instead, this rogue judge, this conflicted judge, this partisan judge, is rushing trial on a bogus case that's never been prosecuted like this ever. This legal theory they're pursuing never been used by New York or any court ever. Again, and they're being used against the former president to interfere with the 2024 election so their buddy Biden can have an easier path to re-election. This judge is violating the federal civil rights of President Trump. And when we had an honest DOJ, it's this judge that would be facing criminal charges.
And when we talk about First Amendment rights and freedom of speech, this would be one of those cases where it's the government imposing
constitutional violation. And you don't take my word for it. Dershowitz said the same thing.
Yep.
Turley said the same thing. Other First Amendment scholars. Where is the American commie-loving union these days? The ACLU is nowhere to be found.
Robert, they're celebrating. They're celebrating.
The way, I don't know if I'd be the right lawyer to bring the case. The judge would probably put me in jail as soon as I walk in the courtroom. But somebody should bring a challenge because they're denying us access to Trump. And you have an independent right as the audience. This is a point Robert Kennedy repeatedly makes. The audience has a free speech right, not just the speaker, the audience, the right to hear it. And they're denying that. And this is established law. And so somebody, Gateway Pundit, some other people should bring a challenge. Mike Cernovich helped open up the Epstein files by bringing an independent challenge as an independent member of the media that helped blow that up on social media and get more attention to what the heck they're hiding there. Somebody should bring the same challenge here because this is a patently unconstitutional gag order. Well, it has nothing to do with protecting the impartiality of the jury.
Let me read it so that people appreciate what it says in here. It says, the grant the gag order to the extent of making or directing others to make public statements about known or reasonably foreseeable witnesses concerning their potential participation in the investigation or in this criminal proceeding. That sounds like witness tampering, which is already illegal. So why put it in there? And what does it mean in terms of the phraseology? You got B, making or directing others to make public statements about one, counsel in the case other than the district's attorney. So you can't talk about counsel. Can't talk about members of the court's staff and the district's attorney's staff.
Let's talk about part one. Part one is the Biden Justice Department has one of the top Biden allies running the case because Alvin Bragg's too stupid to do it, and he didn't want to do it because he thought it was a politically dumb case to pursue. So the real author, just like what's happening with Fani Willis, you dig into it, you're going to find big Biden allies placed in high-ranking positions in those on these cases. And that's what the judge doesn't want anybody to know about. This is the judge covering up corruption of the prosecution, which is never a permissible basis of a gag order.
I just like the way it says making or directing others to make public statements. And how are they going to determine if others have been made to direct public statements? Okay, fine.
Yeah, members of the to suppress anybody in Trump world from making a statement by blaming Trump if the statement occurs.
Members of the court staff and the district attorney staff or the family members. I mean, this is like don't talk about my daughter. Don't talk about Bruno or the family members or any counsel or staff member.
See, all of these provisions about gag orders only relate to the jury. That's it. None of this applies to the jury. He wants to protect the district attorney from being exposed for his corruption. He wants to protect the Biden administration from being exposed from the corruption. He wants to protect the judge and his family from being exposed from the corruption. Mm-hmm. That's what he's doing. This is abuse of judicial power, violation of federal civil rights. What the judge is doing is a federal crime. And judges like this need to be looked at for criminal prosecution. Otherwise, they will keep doing this. They will weaponize their power without any limits, and we'll get the French Revolution's council making judgment and decisions here. So that's why we've got to put a stop to this before it gets out of hand.
And then we got the last one: making or directing others to make public statements about any prospective juror or any juror in this criminal proceeding. The foregoing.
You know what that's about? That's about the Roger Stone case.
Yep.
That's about making sure the world doesn't know of potential prejudiced jurors sneaking onto the jury.
Well, the Derek Chauvin, you get activist jurors who sneak in literally like a runaway jury
because you don't let anybody know that they're on the jury. Bottom line is or seeking it to be on the jury. That's public information. When you're a juror, I have never agreed with juror anonymity. I've never agreed with juror secrecy. You have to, that information has to be, especially during the jury selection process. Mm-hmm. But even the argument is stronger during that process than once they're on the jury. There's legitimate concerns about, you can't say something that is likely to intimidate a juror during a trial. No, duh. I mean, that's already on the books. You don't need really a gag order for that. That's already prohibited. So, this gag order is intended to have a star chamber-like proceeding that covers up the corruption of the judge, that covers up the corruption of the prosecutor, that covers up the corruption of the Biden administration, and covers up the likely complete corruption of the entire jury trial process.
No, and it starts off with Engoron. It goes to Chutkin, and then they all feel empowered because other judges have done it. Nobody's been judicially spanked when they all deserve to be.
Yeah, the mistake they're making is they're putting maximum pressure on the Supreme Court, particularly pragmatic jurists like Roberts and Kavanaugh, that would much rather be uninvolved in these cases, not be perceived as on Trump's side. They're forcing them to protect the judiciary from itself by stepping in and granting because the best and cleanest and easiest way for them to save the judiciary from itself is to stop all of these cases. And the best way to stop all of these cases is a very broad grant of immunity. And they are dramatic. All these rogue judges are so reckless, so careless, so heedless that they are pushing the Supreme Court to gut all of their cases. And they'll deserve it when it comes down.
So he's issued the gag order. Trial is scheduled to start on August 15. There's going to be jury selection, right? Have they started jury selection now?
They were starting it, and then they discovered thousands and thousands of pages of documents that had been that the Biden's DOJ had been hiding.
You still think this is going to get started on August 15?
Not if the Supreme Court rules before then on the Trump has broad immunity. And this judge, I mean, that's what all these rogue judges are doing. They're forcing the Supreme Court to take an action. They would much rather have the ostrich strategy. They'd much rather play Pontius Pilate. But they're forcing them, like the election cases, right? They should have waited on those. Bring those ballot cases later. Don't bring them on the Republican primary challenge. Don't have some liberal commie judge issue some nutty ruling. And that forced even the liberals to join the unanimity, the others. Yeah. And so they're doing the same thing. They don't understand. They are so used to their own power and abusing their own power. They don't know what it means to be restrained. They don't know what it means to get blowback. They have no concept of that. That's how out of touch our elites are. They're not just corrupt. They're stupid. All
right, we're going to see what happens if this trial starts on August 15th. My prediction is it's not. I don't know what.
August 15th, someone in chat said they thought it was April 15th.
I meant April. I forgot what month we're in because it always feels like summer in Florida.
It's ridiculous. But I mean, the judge is trying to rush a trial to embarrass Trump before the Supreme Court can say the whole trial was illegal to begin with.
Yeah, I meant April 15th. I didn't mean August at all. I meant in 2 weeks.
You can't pick an impartial jury. And I was on Sky News in Australia. And they did the documentary evidence they needed to do that showed it was not possible to get an impartial jury in New York. That's a 95% anti-Trump jury that it comes in with a presumption of guilt when the presumption of innocence has to apply. And the judge knows that, but he doesn't care because he wants a lynching jury. And a lot of this was put into motion, by the way, when too many lawyers on the right, too many legal scholars and commentators kept their mouths shut when they did lawfare against Alex Jones. Mm-hmm. We said at the time, this is the roadmap. They're going to, just like when they did with social media, take out Alex Jones first, take out President Trump next. They took out Alex Jones first, denying him of a meaningful jury trial on the merits, using ridiculous proceedings to do so, ridiculous restrictions on his speech and punishment for his speech outside of the courtroom, ridiculous jury selection proceedings that led to prejudiced jurors issuing absurd, laughable verdicts.
Defaulting him from any meaningful defense, like Engeron did to Trump, like Chutkan tried to do.
And now, I mean, there's no way you can get an impartial jury in New York for Trump or DC. It's not possible. And these judges are so clueless, so daft, that they're as daft as that January 6th judge who decided to do an interview on the news talking about his cases and talking about Trump. That's how ego-ridden these judges are. The only thing it's going to do, the federal judges, congressmen should be initiating impeachment proceedings now, not running around finding the latest way to money launder to Ukraine, but figure out impeachment proceedings now, because these judges are way past the pale of any degree of ethical limit, legal limit, constitutional limit. They will only respect impeachment and criminal indictments. And that's what they need, because that's who they've become. And if they want to say nobody has immunity, fine. Then judges have no immunity. You can get sued into oblivion too. You can go to prison too. You still like that idea, judges?